have a confession to make. All through the years of PhD life in New York City, I have been wearing turtlenecks, not because I'm a fan of Steve Jobs. Come on, I was in New York City. I should be wearing like this, or like this, but not like this. Until one day, I revealed it to a doctor in one of the best hospitals in the United States. And he looks at it, and he said, "It's beautiful." He was not talking about my neck, but a scar that was done by a surgeon in China on my thyroid. When it came to that doctor's turn, I lost not only my thyroid, but also a parasite. I asked him, "How could this happen?" And he said, "You have 4 of them." Yes, I had 4 of them, but now I have only 3. So just because I have 2 legs and you can easily cut one? So my experience tells you, China has very good surgeons. But unfortunately, they are only paid 1/10 of the surgeons in the United States. So here comes my question and my research of the doctor's situation in China. So now you can understand how sad and angry I felt when I heard the news about the doctor Tao Yun, a chief ophthalmologist in China, who was attacked by his patient on his head, on his hands. As a result, he could not continue performing the surgeries that would save thousands of people and give them the vision to see the world again. And his case is just one of the examples. There has been an increasing trend of medical disputes in China, and only 1/10 of them were resolved through legal procedure. Instead, a lot of them were resolved through violent measures, like attacking the doctors, like holding funerals in the hospital. And in 2012, 96% of hospitals had the doctors being humiliated or threatened by the patients or their families. And over 60% of hospitals had the doctors injured. How can that happen? So we did an online study with the doctors in China, and we asked them whether they have been mistreated by their patients and under what situation. It turns out that almost 1/3 of the mistreatment involves some financial reasons. You know, in China, a large proportion of the doctor's income is based on the medical expenses that's generated for the hospitals. As a result, the patients, when the treatment cannot meet their expectation, they may doubt that the doctors were not treating them for their best result, but have some conflict of interest. To find out how the incentive influences the doctors and the trust from the patient, we did an online experiment. We randomly assigned the patients who have visited hospitals in the last year to 3 conditions. For 1/3 of them, we told them there was no association in the hospital between the doctor's income and the medical expenses they spend. And for another 1/3, we told them there was some slight association. And for another 1/3, we told them there's a high correlation. And we found that even for those 1/3 who were told that there was no such correlation, they still have this medium level of belief that the expenses that they spend is related with the doctor's income. So how does that influence their trust in the doctors? we found that beyond the doctor's expertise, the more the patients believe that there's an association between their expenses and the doctor's income, the less trust they develop in the doctors, regardless of the actual incentive that is set up. So in order to restore the patient's trust in the doctors, we need not only set up the right incentive, but also communicating it to the patients in order to restore their trust, to let them really believe in the interest of the doctors. So how about the doctor side? After being mistreated by the patients, like frequently in their workplace, how do they feel? How do they cope with it? We did an experiment with the doctors, and we asked them either to recall applied treatment they received from patients or mistreatment. We found that the mistreatment significantly reduced how they feel about themselves. It's such a proud occupation, right? So after being mistreated, they experience the negative emotions like ashamed, like guilty, like sad. And these negative emotions drive them to sabotage against the patients, such as reducing level of care, disclosing less information to the patient, and increasing the charge of unnecessary medicine. So how can we break that cycle? Since the doctor's self is largely impacted by the mistreatment from the patients, we suggest that maybe the intervention called self-affirmation may help the doctors regain their sense of self-worth. So in this intervention, we ask the doctors to reflect on what is important to them, what they feel proud about themselves. So after this chance to reflect on their self-worth, we found that those who are being mistreated by the patients has reduced negative emotions. And that further reduced their sabotage against the patients. So you may wonder, what helps the doctors restore their sense of self-worth, make them feel good about themselves again? We did analysis of their responses. It turns out the largest source of their self-worth comes from their work. When they see their patients recover, when they're being appreciated by the patients, when they see the smile on their patient's face. And for another source of their self-worth, it comes from belief, the values that they hold. For example, someone gave the belief that keep smiling. The doctors are being treated in such a bad way, and what they believe in is keep smiling. How strong are the Chinese doctors? So going back to my original question, how can we save the doctors? It involves not only set up the right incentive, communicating to the patients, restore their trust in the doctors, but also it's us, all the patients, our appreciation, our trust, and our smile that can keep the doctors smile, that can really save them from the impact of being mistreated by the patients. Thank you so much.